I'm Megann Marcellino, and I want to welcome you back today to Generations at the Table. Thank you so much for pulling up a seat. You know, the last couple of weeks we've been talking about things like generational lessons, and then we've talked about the empowerment that comes from making hard decisions and not choosing the easy button. But these are all based on embracing the life lessons that we've been given. And how do we take those lessons, apply them to our lives, and not only change our future and our destiny, but the future and destiny for our families, our children, and the generations to come after us. Today I want to talk to you about top 5 regrets of people who are dying and how to apply biblical wisdom to live a fulfilling life in the midst of that. I read a post a couple weeks ago on Instagram, and it was about some of the top 5 regrets that people have who are dying. And my thought was, yeah, you could just skim right past that. Or you could look at that and say, okay, if these are 5 regrets that people have, then how do I take these and learn the lessons from them and choose to do my life differently so that I can, in fact, avoid those regrets. And that's the purpose of embracing generational lessons. That's the purpose of making those hard decisions, is saying, I am on a path, and here's the path that I'm going on, but I don't want these regrets. So I'm not just going to read them and say, yeah, that sucks. I hope that doesn't happen to me. I'm going to read them and say, okay, if this is a common occurrence in humanity, then these are some decisions I'm going to make now. And I'm going to live by these decisions so that when I get to the end of my life, I do not have these regrets. Do I think I will arrive at the end with absolutely 0 regrets? No. But I do think that I can take the lessons that others have left to us in wisdom, like the Proverbs say, and receive it, apply it, hold on to it. Because see, wisdom is there, but it's not just this ethereal thing. It has to be embraced and it has to be walked out. So we can identify these regrets and we can begin to shift our path now so that it's something that we could avoid in the future. Okay, regret number 1. I wish I had had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. So, true confession, sometimes I worry way too much about what other people think. And it's not so much that I want to live a life that matters what I care. Like, I'm not one of those people that really cares about I don't know how to put it. Like, I'm not concerned so much about what people think about me. Like, I need to impress them or something like that. It's not that. I just don't want people to think bad about me. I don't want people to think that, like I'm making crazy decisions, or I fear that. Like, I want their respect, and I don't want people to think ill of me, and I don't want people to think that I'm lazy or all those things. Like, I worry about that. I want them to see me for who I truly am. And that comes from a place of fear. And that's not really what we want to live in, but we have to choose to live our life, I think, based on our assignment, our calling, and our destiny. And we put that first and put what other people think of us and expect of us, behind. Galatians 1:10 says this. It says, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. So we live to win the Father's approval first, and hopefully we win the approval of others later, but we don't make our life choices based on that. So I think about the times that I have made decisions strictly based on what other people thought, what other people wanted. And sometimes those people speaking into your life can be people that love you. Sometimes it can be your family, and it can be good. And sometimes it's not even bad things, but you have to choose to live the life that God has called you to in that season. I mean, I can tell you from my perspective, Paul and I are really deep into what we would maybe call like a family era. Like, we are raising our kids. We have 3 young kids at home. We have an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And our life revolves around them. And it revolves around being present for bedtimes. And vacations look different because it's just being a family in a different state. It's not really like a vacation. And you got all of these different things that are happening. But I'm loving this season, and I am trying to embrace it fully because I know from Arabella being 8 that it goes all too quick. quickly. But subsequently, we've had to say no to some things. Maybe they're social things, maybe they're family things. And I constantly feel like we're letting people down and we're letting their expectations down, that we're not present in the relationship in the way that they need us to be. But we are having to choose that right now in this season and for the next 10 years, we're going to be really heavy on our family, but that is what is most important. So we're choosing to live in that moment and embrace that moment and lay aside other people's expectations. So I want to encourage you to do the same. Whatever season that God has you in, be present, be where your feet are, fully embrace it, and let the Lord manage the expectations of others. Regret number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I think that I kind of see that differently. I think my regret would be, I wish I hadn't worked so hard on things that didn't really matter. Or I wish that I hadn't worked so hard on things that other people expected me to work on, or that was to meet some kind of weird approval. I think we have to find a balance between our work and our rest, but ultimately that becomes it being present where you're at. I think that this whole idea of a work-life balance is kind of an elusive idea. I think that the best thing that we can do, especially as parents and as spouses, is be present when you're there. I mean, it's something that I've definitely struggled with as a mom. Trying to be a mom and then trying to be in leadership, it feels like you're constantly being tugged. And it feels like you're being pulled in a lot of different directions. And am I really ever fully present for my kids? Because even when I'm home, I'm reachable on my phone all the time, by text, by Slack, by email for the 4 people who choose to email me that I may or may not read. But I mean, you've got all of these different avenues of people trying to connect with you, and you're still trying to be present as a parent, and it makes it hard. But my dad reassured me recently that it's okay for your kids to see you working hard. And it's okay for your kids to realize that the life that they live and the legacy they carry came from a place of sacrifice and came from a place from hard work and doesn't come from being easy. So as much as I try and be present for our kids, I'm also okay that they know that mommy and daddy, in this season, we both work. We always have. I'm assuming we always will, and that's okay. And this is the example that we're giving for you. So I don't want my regret to be, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I think it would be more, I wish I hadn't worked so hard on things that didn't matter, and I wish that I had been present when I was at home and able to. I wish that I had not chased every opportunity. I think that when I look back at Paul and I's younger years, we chased a lot of opportunities, and now I'm much more selective because I realize the cost is associated with that. Matthew 11:28-30 says this, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So how do we avoid that regret? I think we avoid that regret by accepting his yoke and not taking on yokes that we weren't meant to carry. Regret number 3, I wish I had had the courage to express my feelings. I think that this really highlights the importance of the human experience to be vulnerable and to be honest and to be known and to be seen and to be authentic and to be loved for who you truly are. I think that is something that we all really want. We want to be loved truly for who we are, in an authentic way, and not for any appearance that we give off. Unexpressed feelings can really result in regret and misunderstandings. But at the same time, I think we can over-communicate our feelings and we can live in this place that's like a false reality. So I don't think I struggle so much to express my feelings, but sometimes I think I struggle with myself of being honest of why I feel the way that I do. Like, why am I feeling pressured in this situation? Why is this feeling exhausting? Why is this feeling draining? And a lot of times I find out that those are because I am carrying a yoke that I was never meant to carry, that I am taking responsibility, that I am trying to be the glue, that I am trying to take on something that I was never meant to carry. This was not my yoke, not my burden, not my calling. And it's those things that exhaust us. Because when I take on work and responsibilities that I was meant to do, it may be hard and it may be tiring, but it's still life-giving. So for me, I think the regret would be less, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings, and more, I wish I had the courage to be honest with where those feelings came from and how to address them, and not just live as a victim of what I'm feeling and saying, well, I have no control over this. First Thessalonians 2:4 says, "But just as we have been approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel, so we speak, not to please man, but to please God who tests our hearts." So our words and that which we are expressing should be in alignment of pleasing God. And we have been entrusted to further the gospel. We have been entrusted to take his yoke and to carry that forward. And so maybe it's being honest with yourself about your feelings and emphasizing within yourself the value of that acknowledgement and the value of that honesty and that transparency. See, I think we want people to be honest with us. We want people to be transparent with us, but are you being honest and transparent with yourself? Are you speaking the truth in love? Are you like taking a hard look at the mirror? Okay, regret number 4. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I think that this is a hard one. I think that this is a regret that we will all have to a certain extent. But I read that, and sometimes I'm like, sometimes it's okay to have a balance in relationships and say, I just don't have the bandwidth to maintain all of these relationships. I feel like I used to do a much better job of that, of checking in and loving on and engaging. And then in like the last, really since we've become parents, it's really hard to find that bandwidth. But here's what I will say is those relationships, those core relationships that really matter, are you loving them? Are you nurturing them? Are you making time for them? And I don't think that always looks like those old friends from, high school or elementary or whatever it was. I don't think you have to always keep those gates and those doors open. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to. Maybe that would be your regret. But I know I will regret if I didn't make time for my kids, my husband, my parents, grandparents, those types of things. Like, I will regret that. I will regret not stopping and pausing, working too hard and not making any time for relationships. I think that we need to recognize that those relationships really matter, sowing into them. And then not only for yourself, but for the example you set to your family. Sometimes I wonder what my kids think about me if I'm imbalanced and all we do is like work and family. Do I tend to those relationships that I really love? And, we have some really close friends that I'm blessed to get to nurture those relationships, but I hope our kids see that and that they will do the same and that they will emulate it. Proverbs 17:17 reminds us that a friend loves at all times. And so, sometimes those seasons are different, but when you have that true friendship, that love transcends it. And hopefully you can just pick up where you left off. So really, I think the lesson we can learn there is prioritizing relationships and maintaining some form of connection. And then regret number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. I think that that's really an interesting perspective because I think sometimes we wait on happiness, either as a reward for ourselves or when XYZ happens, then we will be happy. When this achievement is made, when this house is bought, when I have the car, when the kids are this age, when I win the prize, when I fulfill my destiny. And it's like, no, be happy now. Be happy in the moment. I've talked about this before, but my husband, Paul, is the king of pre-celebrations. And I am so grateful for it because he will celebrate a perceived win or a perceived something that great's going to happen before it ever happens. And you know why I'm grateful for it? Because we have had way more pre-celebrations and post-celebrations because so much of what you think is going to happen isn't going to happen. But you know what? Life should be celebrated. And so we live in the moment of the anticipation and we embrace that win. And I think we've had so many happy memories because of it. And the other side of it is, and we've talked about this before, so many days that should be really good celebratory days are somehow surrounded by something that is not. It could be a world event. It could be something that's happening in your family. It could be someone sick. It could be something in your church or your congregation that kind of just steals from that moment. So I think what we can learn from this potential regret is to embrace happiness in the moment that it presents itself and celebrate all the little wins and even all of the perceived wins and choose that life, choose that happiness, choose to uninvest if you have to in something. I don't know if you've ever heard of the concept of like a sunk debt mentality. What a sunk debt mentality is, it was outlined to me in this example of it's like saying, I bought a printer for my business and it cost $10,000. It cost $20,000. It's still working 10 years later. It's still working 15 years later. So it's fine because I invested this much money into it. But the challenge is that if you would buy a new printer, you could print 3 times as fast, much more clear, you could be much more efficient, but you're hanging on to that debt. But making another financial decision in the future is like completely outside of that. So what we want to do, and they're completely separate. What you want to do is make decisions for the life that you want, the happiness you want, and not live in this mentality of, well, I invested so much into this situation, I can never uproot myself from it. No, you can choose happiness. You can choose the joy of the Lord. You can choose to rejoice. But sometimes that is an uprooting, a change and a transition and a transformation that may look kind of scary. But in choosing your future and in choosing those moments and those opportunities, you have to let go of, well, look at all that I invested here. I can't remotely consider uprooting from this. Absolutely you can. You've gleaned the lessons, you've learned the lessons. It was worth the $20,000 you invested in that printer, but now isn't time to invest in a new one. And those past financial decisions, those past emotional decisions, those past investment decisions can't always dictate your future. I think if you do that and you constantly live in that past mentality, you will live with regrets and realize that you didn't choose happiness. You did not choose joy. You did not choose to rejoice. You chose efficiency and you chose to stay in the same place. So here's the thing. We've read about the top 5 regrets of the dying. And again, they were, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I wish that I had let myself be happier. So today, which one of those regrets do you think if you didn't pivot, if you didn't make a change at the end of your life, you would probably find yourself saying? So you've picked one. All right, whichever one that is, what can you do today? What could you do in this season to pivot, to transition, to avoid it? That's why we go through the Goals to Grow workbook, is because we are choosing to live towards our goals and the life that we want. And so those goals should take you in the opposite direction of these regrets. We can learn from the regrets of the dying. We can learn from the regrets of the generations that have gone before us, even people we do not know, and we can glean from their wisdom and we can apply it so that when we arrive at the end of our life, yeah, sure, it's not going to be absolutely 0 regrets, but it's going to be minimal because we chose to live the life that we were destined for. We chose to unlock our own kingdom destiny and walk it out. Thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to be here with you again next week. Same time, same place.